Hello and welcome to the second season of Lights, Camera, Inclusion, the first video series by Now and Next, the Canada Media Fund's editorial platform. We're here in Vancouver to meet some movers and shakers from the screen-based industry who are doing important work when it comes to representation, inclusive practices, and teamwork. We're going to be talking to some very inspiring and brave creators, directors, and leaders who have made it their mission to pave the way for the next generation of storytellers from across the country. Follow me. In this episode, we'll meet producers, filmmakers, and live partners Steve J. Adams and Sean Horlor. Their latest documentary, Satan Wants You, had its world premiere at South by Southwest this year. Sean and Steve are happy to give back to the queer community by training and being role models for the up-and-coming generation of LGBTQ+ creators. Sean and Steve, hi. Thank you so much for being with me today. I appreciate it. So you two are a couple in real life and you work really closely together as well. So if I could ask, what came first? Was it the personal or the professional connection? And how did you move from one to the other, if I may ask?
It was almost at the same time when we first met. So met Steve the first time at Wreck Beach. So that is a naked beach in Vancouver. And did not connect.
You did not?
Did not click.
Okay.
The first time. Mm-hmm. And then about a year later, we were at a Sunday tea dance at a gay bar on Davie Street here in Vancouver. And that time it was magic.
Wow. Okay.
I should say magic, not go down on that.
So that was like love at second sight or something like that?
Yeah.
And then you immediately started to think about projects and films that you wanted to work on together?
Sean had a show at that time.
Yeah.
So you were deep into TV. And then when we kind of came together, I had a different business. I was in a landscape business that kind of fell apart during the 2008, 2009 crash. And I was kind of figuring out what I wanted to do. I saw what you were doing, and that's when we decided to start doing online video together. And that's really where we started.
So you learned things as you were doing them, basically?
For sure. Vimeo was my school.
Okay. All right.
For me, I mean, I had a reality lifestyle TV series called Don't Quit Your Gay Job. So this was, I had 2 years of hosting and being an associate producer on that and helping with the creative and planning the shows. So it's sort of that experience for me, being in front of the camera, I wanted to learn all the, how it worked and direct and to do that. And when I met Steve, it was just both of us could do it together. And I think it was 3 months maybe after we met that we, started a company and said we're doing this. So.
Okay, that's such an interesting journey. I want to talk about not your latest film, but the one before that, Someone Like Me, which was released in 2021, winner of a Rogers Audience Award at the Hot Docs that year. Congratulations.
Thank you.
So basically, it's you follow a group of Vancouver-based queer individuals who, they come together for a year, a bit more than that, in order to safely welcome an LGBTQ refugee to Canada. It's a fascinating journey with a lot of, bumps in the road. I want us to watch a quick excerpt and then we'll come back.
I think a lot of people come into it thinking it's going to be some sort of big party and they're going to do some fundraising, they'll greet the person at the airport and that'll be it.
But shit happens, things fall apart.
The group is divided, and the way in which we support him is divided.
It's a bunch of well-to-do adults, and we can't get our shit together.
I just want to be comfortable in my own skin, in what I own and in what I have, in the friends I have.
Throughout the film, we see real day struggles, not only with Drake, the refugee who arrives in Canada, but with the group and the group dynamic and a little thing called COVID-19, which obviously caused a few disruptions, but I really feel you kept it real. We could see the multi-layered aspect to the individual struggles and the group dynamic. And I was just wondering, with you being behind the camera, how was that experience for you? And how did you manage your expectations between what your initial idea and, the end result you got?
That's a good question. I mean, it is real life, right? So we're documentary filmmakers. You go into a project like this thinking X, Y, and Z is going to happen, and you hope that happens because it's what you've planned for. But the film starts. You're going to be filming, in our case, for like a year and a half, and you have to follow the story. And when things change, I think that's like a really universal element to the film, above and beyond the queer community, that anyone could relate to, is the fact that you might hope that something's going to happen and all your wishes, and life happens and it's different, and that's part of being human.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was maybe one of the hardest things I've had to do in my life. You have a group of 10 people. You're constantly looking at their schedules. Each week, we're coming back into the production office. We're talking to everybody. We're maintaining all these relationships, and trying to make sure that we can move the story forward. And there was a lot of bumps. While the group's experiencing some like really like heavy things, we're also feeling those, and we're almost acting like counselors at the same time, right? Like it was a really, really hard experience, and I'm happy that we were able to get through it and put it together in the film that has been, it's still having lasting impact, and that's one of the best things that's come from it.
We had somebody come actually at our latest film screening here in Vancouver and come up to us and be like, "Oh, I saw someone like me, and I joined a sponsorship circle, and your film inspired me to do this, and I knew I could do it." And
That's amazing.
yeah.
Yeah, and it's amazing because the film doesn't shy away from the fact that it's difficult and that, I don't want to, spoil anything, but, things might evolve within that group, but they did not, that person felt it was still like a worthy experience, and that's amazing. I wanted to ask you about what is your definition of an inclusive set? What are some of the practices that you've put in place to make sure that a set is inclusive?
I mean, for us, we want talented people. We want people from a diverse background. We want to have different influences on the set, because I think just having that sort of diversity just makes the set stronger. I think you get different viewpoints, you get different experiences, that just makes the whole experience richer.
That intrinsic diversity that you want to put forward and make happen in that kind of organic way.
For sure.
Yeah. I mean, imagine if you had like a whole crew of people who have the exact same lived experience and exact same viewpoint. Like, how do you make art with that when it's just monolithic and one?
Especially documentary.
Yeah.
Right? Like
More voices, more experiences. It's way better filmmaking.
And on that note, what do you think are some of the biggest challenges remaining in the industry when it comes to representation, especially the queer community or communities?
For myself, I feel like, especially within Canada, there needs to be better training programs. I feel like a lot of the times, people who we like broadcasters will say you need to have like 30% of your crew has to be BIPOC. Whereas there needs to be like the training in place to expand and make a better base of people who can make things properly, I guess is the where I'm trying to go with it. I think Tell a Story Hive has done some really interesting work in the way that they fund and the way that they get people making things. And it's just like giving them that step and giving them that opportunity actually gets more people into the industry, so you have a bigger talent pool to choose from. I think when a broadcaster is like, you just need to fill 30% of the roles, makes it really tricky, because there aren't the resources there to make that happen.
In a sustainable way.
Yes. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
Or, the expectation that we're making, a documentary. A lot of the time, this isn't a money-making endeavor, and that there is an added pressure through the funding system in Canada for us to mentor or intern on top of having a crew, on top of doing filming, which I understand why that's in place. However, it's like Steve said, if there were more initiatives similar to what TELUS has done here in British Columbia and Alberta, where they had literally, we were one of the first filmmaking teams who had funding from the TELUS program. And over the course of our career, they have built a diverse, talented, like the depth of talent in Vancouver and Alberta that they have helped build for filmmakers who are new to take all those steps and get further in their career like we have. We're like the end result of that program. what they did in BC is so inspiring to us, and it's something that we bring to how we hire, how we make our films.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Like it touches on another question I wanted to ask you later, but let's go right into it. I think it was you when we first got in touch. You mentioned that you wish that you could have watched like an interview like that like years ago when you first started to work together. So obviously, like the importance of role models, you know, crucial. So I wanted to know how engaged or involved, you mentioned it a little bit right now, you are with the next generation of filmmakers. Queer or not, but I mean like in the spirit that you're mentioning, to have like that big talent pool and that people, wherever they come from or whoever they are, can just like, you know, get the training and do what they know to do.
When you reached out to us to participate in this series, it made me think back to 8 years ago where we were looking for other queer filmmakers, queer directors to actually say, oh, how have they done their career? Could we reach out to them and contact them and ask for help? And just being like, well, we can't find anyone, and where are these people, and why can't we see them visibly online? And yeah, I mean, now here we are 8 years later, we are mentoring a young filmmaker, which is, you know, it's trying to pay it forward and say yes to these sort of opportunities, who's making a film about the queer community, a member of a queer elder here in Vancouver. And it's really interesting to be able to give back and sort of see a new generation's approach to filmmaking and how we can actually help facilitate that.
So your latest film, Satan Wants You, I feel that it doesn't have like an obvious queer aspect to it, but I wanted to know if you thought there was any parallels to your community or elsewhere.
I think with Satan Wants You, it's a jam-packed film. There's a lot of different topics and areas of the satanic panic that we kind of explore. One of the areas that we didn't have enough time to really go into was a lot of the people who are being arrested are being accused of satanic ritual abuse or queer people. They were the people who were othered, they were the people who were singled out, and they were the easiest target. And a lot of the times, we do feature Kelly Michaels in the film. She is queer, and she was accused of horrendous things with children, and actually spent 5 years of her life in prison. And so like in respect to queer people within Satan Wants You, there is a thread, and it definitely does exist.
So of course you're not the only couple in the industry that, you know, works together, but I was intrigued because you're always listed as co-directors or co-screenwriters. On paper, you're doing the same job. So I was wondering how that works on a daily basis, doing the same position basically, and how do you maintain that level of synchronicity? I'm very curious about that.
I think it's a back and forth process. It's a partnership. We're always talking about ideas. Sean does a lot of the writing, but I'm a bouncing board, and we discuss all the story ideas that we do have. When we're developing the creative, it's very much a team exercise where we're always bouncing these back and forth. We're always talking. We're always trying to figure out what is the vision for the project. I always wonder how somebody does it by themselves. It's such an overwhelming position, and it's really hard to do. Like, it's a really, really hard job. I think with two of us, though, we can make films faster. We can make them better, and we're doing it well.
Yeah, definitely.
I also think, I mean, filmmaking is a relationship industry, and everything you do, it's not a director, their film, this is a collaboration with a ton of people to make a film. And for us, it's like, even starting with the two of us, it's a collaboration the entire time. Before we even get to the rest of the crew on set, interviewing people, we have talked to each other, have come to a compromise, because, you know, we are two people with two different ideas. And I think that just makes us stronger filmmakers, because you do this process, we do it first, and then you do it with every creative person you work with down the chain. And
have you ever dealt with a situation where you did not agree?
Oh yeah, we're human.
Yeah. And then be like, okay, right, fair enough. But like, you thought you agreed, and then something happens, and you have, you know, different perspectives on how to deal with that in the filmmaking process. How do you usually handle that?
I mean, it's just communication, and we just need to like constantly be like fluid with all the decisions and be willing to to move through the past. It's not like we can like have a stop and say like no, like it doesn't go any further, right? Like there has to be compromise, and you just have to be able to move through it and make the right decisions.
Yeah. I mean, almost all problems, I find all human problems on set are all communication based. So if you're not communicating with the people you're working with or your primary collaborator, you are going to have problems. And let me tell you.
And that works for the couple too, right? So,
True.
yeah, it's a good strategy. I want to hear about your next project, or what you can tell me right now about your next project. And I wanted to keep in mind, you know, the political context in North America with the backlash, you know, with respect to trans rights, other minority rights. How does that influence your perspective, your projects, your outlook?
It's funny, I mean, we talked a little bit about Satan Wants You. We finished filming that film right when this, you know, latest upsurge against the transgender community and drag queens started in the US and Canada and then elsewhere in the world, where they are again being, you know, accused of grooming children. This is something queer people have been accused of forever. And to see this happen again, like we couldn't include it in Satan Wants You, but it's just that same chain of, you know, you're not part of the mainstream, so we're going to accuse you of murdering babies and drinking their blood and, you know, all the usual satanic stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
And this for us, I mean, it's sort of like looking towards future projects. I think one of the main, both a positive comment after Satan Wants You and also a criticism is that people wanted more. So, I mean, we have a 90-minute documentary. There's only so much you can stuff in a 90-minute film, let me tell you. But we've been exploring the ideas of taking this and turning it into a multi-part series. So you can actually go through some of these, like the queer aspect of the satanic panic, really look at the present day evolution from Pizzagate to QAnon to what's happening with drag queens and the transgender community. So that's on the back burner cooking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Amazing.
And then we have a few other projects that we're working on as well. We have a few in development, and we have some series ideas that we're pitching in the States right now. Some true crime, some crack smoking bear.
Yeah.
Some more 80s and 90s ideas too. I mean, that's, you know, this is our childhood, youth, teenage years. Those are really weird decades when you start picking them apart and taking a look at what was happening.
And finding some stories that we heard a lot of like before, but then it kind of got forgotten, and then it's like a weird process to bring them back to life. And yeah, so I think it's you know, finding those parallels, I think, is really it says something about the cycle. You know, there's progress, and we're seeing progress, but that backlash is real. I wanted to know what your biggest hope for change within the industry. What's your biggest thing that you would like to see change in the next few years?
It's complicated, right?
Yeah.
That's a really good question. I mean, we look now that do you think we're mid-career? Is that what you call us now?
Two films, I think we're mid.
Two films and a bunch of short films.
Yeah.
I mean, there's definitely this sort of stereotypical Canadian film and definitely a stereotypical Canadian documentary. I think part of this work to bring more diverse voices to the table and have their projects funded, I would hope to see that this sort of stereotypical film that everyone expects filmmakers in Canada to make, that will finally change. And, you know, for us, we sort of play in the space between commercial and premium streaming. That's where we exist. And it's not always really popular with gatekeepers in Canada. And I mean, we see it with how our films are reviewed and sometimes not getting funded for things that I think people would really like to watch in Canada and worldwide. So I'm hoping that we're part of that change and that there'll actually more voices, more stories that people don't expect, and that Canadian filmmaking changes.
Totally. Canada has some really great talent. And there's lots of new up and coming talent that is like amazing to watch. And I just think that like Canadian funders need to kind of pull it together and like nurture this talent and raise them up, because we should be making movies for the world, not just Canada.
I wanted to end on that note, but I have one last question.
I know, that was like,
It's like just perfect. It's kind of a personal question, but I'm gonna ask Sean first. What is Steve's best quality in your eyes?
oh, I mean, there's so many, Steve has so many good qualities. I mean, he's like a magnetic personality. He is super creative. Thinks about things visually in such a really interesting way, and they can actually work with people to bring that to life, and is like such a great story collaborator. Like, you have a head for story. This is why we're so many years into this and we've made all these films, and you're a great creative partner.
And Steve, what makes Sean the best partner?
Sean knows how to communicate. Sean knows how to. When I'm not able to like express myself, Sean's able to like actually sit down and talk and say like, let's try to get this out. And by doing that, he's able to like organize, and he can do that with anybody. Sean just has like crazy empathy, and people trust him, and they want to talk to him. And the way that Sean gathers people's trust is something that I think is nobody else can do that. You're really talented at that.
Thanks.
Thank you so much for being so open and for sharing all this. And good luck for your next project.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks
Thank
for having
you.
us.